Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to participate in the Economic Academy conference and this reunion. I watched it carefully the before the previous Congress. It was very nice, and I really hope that this initiative. I want to congratulate the initiatives of the Congo Academy, and I hope this is a meeting point for scholars that want to debate and share their views. I'm really happy and for this is the first time that I'm talking with specialist people because here in Brazil we have few people that work in archaeology. So I'm really happy to talk with you and to share my thoughts. My research, this is a research that, as he told, is a result of my master dissertation that I did in University of São Paulo, and it's about the heritage process. And my first attempt was to join the members of the excavation teams, but because of multiple questions and problems with government and the team, I was not allowed. So I did it in another way as I could. So, but I think that it's really nice to have a different view of the process, and I hope it's fair for you. It's useful to you to understand the complexity of the process, the heritage process, right? So, yeah, my research is in Banza, Congo, and everybody here knows where Banza, Congo is. It's a very famous city, one of the most important cities of Africa. And we are really happy to see that archaeological research was done in Angola, and for future maybe in the future they will have more research. It's really important because it's a very important place for humankind, right? Mankind. The main point of discussion here is the art of conversion, the topic that was widely discussed in the bibliography. Thornton, Magatti, and everybody discussed it a lot. What means to be Christian and what means to this conversion and the bibliography. I was not going to discuss the historical act itself, but how this act is still unfold today, the different narratives about the past, right? So this is the city, as I saw that you see, this is what I think that was the position of Dapper when he tried to draw it, of the 17th century drawing, even if he was not there yet. And then the position that I saw that is equivalent. So it's a plateau and it's the mountain and have the fountains, and it's very strategic place in the region, right? My research is concerned about the kulumbimbi. My dissertation, I talk about the Yalankuo and the position of the king. But in this presentation, I will just talk about the kulumbimbi. That's the most significant in the terms of the heritage narrative. Right? The others are more besides in the main narratives, the focus, right? So what I call kulumbimbi, it's this place that come together, the cemetery and the ruins and this. And what we have, this is the material thing, and also the narratives about this place, the mystical place, what I call a place. And in archaeological terms, the meaningful place is a very meaningful place. Right? All these layers of meaning that have in this place. This is the kulumbimbi. These photos I shot in 2014 while I was in my field work there. See that you still have a digging in the back of the ruins. And it was in August. So for the start, I would like to share some views about what does kulumbimbi mean. I think this is necessary to introduce. Right. What does kulumbini? In my research in Portugal archives, I try to find out in all literature documents and bibliography if the name kulumbimbi when it appears. And I found that the first time that in the Portuguese document that appears, it was in this journal, the Catholic journal Apostolado. That in two of January of 1957, the same year of the monument, right? It says that with effects between the next achievements, we can enumerate the follows: reparation of the King's Cemetery in the Kulumbingi. It's meaningful because in the Batalha was the architecture that we talk about in later, right? But it was the architecture that did the heritage process by the colonial government. And he don't write Kulumbini, the name Kulumbini. But so this is for me a sign that people in Banza Congo that was they treated the place, they named it safe the place about Kulumbini, right? We have the Rafael Baticama in his book in the state that say that there is a place to see the Kulumbimbi, the cemetery of the ancient kings of Congo. So we see uh, for he, it's definite. There is no doubt. It is the cemetery, right? For his nephew, Patricio Baticama, the Kulumbi mean what remain of the ancestors. These are the ruins of a church from the 16th century Banzacon. So that he connects the Kulumbimbi with the ruins of the church. Right? So we have a view of cemetery, we have a view of the church. And you show a video later. He will explain further this explanation. Right? We go to the linguistic about the considering the Lemon dictionary. He say the kulum, it's old, age, seniority, antiquity, old time, far in the past. And bimbi, corpse, dead person, or so the place where the corpse of ancient dead person are. Right. So it's connected with the meaning of cemetery also. And the turtle, and he's writing in this encyclopedia article, saying that in 1549, Jesuits built the Church of São Salvador, which became the seat of the Bishop of Congo when the Catholic Church created Oxin in 1596. This church, which we stand, is known locally as Kulumbimbi. So we see that we have two different views by this, that one more connected with cemetery, other more connected with the church. Different views. These views polarize itself, and we can see that reflects in the people. So I brought this video, and if you don't listen to it, you just tell me that I'll try to put the microphone here better, right? But I put subtitles. So it was interviews that I did in Banza Congo, asking them, what is Kulumbimbi? And they answered. So as you saw it by the video, sadly you couldn't listen, but we try the next video. The video shows that people interviews connects more the concept of Kulumbimbi with the place and more with the traditional meaning of the place. More with ancestors, with tradition and local history. And they don't connect the Kulumbimbi place with the Kulumbimbi concept place with the history of the Catholic Church, right? Or the colonialism, or the time, the arrival of the Portuguese and the church. So my hypothesis in my dissertation was that this. Now, we hypothesized that the conception of Kulumbimbi between different groups living in Banza Congo goes beyond the colonial perception that relates to those archaeological remains a narrow meaning as a Catholic Church, incorporating other interpretations based on experience with the ruins and local tradition. So that was my hypothesis that I went to Banza Congo to see, right? And this narrative, different narratives about the Kulumbimbi place creates conflicts, especially nowadays that became a world heritage. So that's Kulumbimbi, I think, even in the past, this is not the one that you say this, but there is more specialists here, but that's always be a place of power, right? To show power, to show strength. Even
before the church was built there. And today still is. Now we can see that Catholic Church do masses, do some service inside. We see the Pope visit there, right? This is really relevant. We see that the traditional Lumbu goes there often to do their ceremonies. The colonial president of Portugal visit there and make it sure that appears in the front of the church. And the Kimbangis church also goes there and do their ceremony, the celebration there. Né? The local Kimbangis. So it's the Tocois also, and all the different churches that I interviewed in Manza Congo. For all of them, it's a very important place, and it's a place of power. Né? Different meanings of power, but there is no doubt about it. So my field work, how I did it, I look at the internet because as in diaspora, right? I in Brazil, I always read the books of Thornton, McGaffey, and everybody here. And for me, this place was a church and was the colonial place of the bishop and the service and the place of the kings and the documents of the Monumentum Africana that I've read. That's also a place, the place of the history, the document history. But in the Facebook, I saw there are many groups in the Facebook that they reivindicate this other narrative that this place is not a church at all. They have different meanings. So, and even if I don't speak Bakongo, so that was a problem, of course. Yet, one way to do my approach to these local leaders was that I printed these photos here in the front that the people, the media, Kimpagvita and Minkisi. So I printed these photos and I show it to them, as here, and I just let them talk. Say, what do you think this photo is, and what is your thoughts about this photo? And they talk me about a lot about the king and the kulumbimbi and the cemetery and the past and the future, and that's it. My concern was especially with people that they reivindicate themselves to be the tradition, they reivindicate themselves to be the tradition passed by, right? Sorry, my English, right? I mean, I'm kind of nervous. So, for example, these priests and these pastors and local leaders, they say, now I know the history of Congo, so I can tell you. So that's the one that I talked. I didn't talk with people in the street, aleatory, or normal people, or people. No, I just talk with people. They say I have something to say about the history of the Congo. That's the ones that I talk. Right? My interviews. I did more than 30 interviews in my fieldwork. So in my research, and then I went to Portugal to do my 2 months archive research. And so this was my 2 field works, one in Banza Congo about the local narratives, and in the field work, in the documents. And always my purpose was not discuss the history itself. That was not my business. Right? I don't make oral history here. What interests me is about what the community itself thinks about their own past, right? In the documents, different communities. So I choose 2 communities. One community that is the Portuguese and colonial and Angola government, and the other, the local people that I interviewed. So I found these 2 narratives, right? One is the colonial narratives. In the 19th century, as we see perfectly in this map, Angola was a complete, the king of Congo was a completely blank place in the Portuguese history at the time, right? Like all these adventures of the 16th, 17th century, they didn't follow the Book of Thornton and everybody books of Magafe and they talk about this. This transition, and the thesis of Cécile Fromont that talked about the 19th century showed that 19th century was a Congo that was not as strong in the beginning of 19th century, right? The strong Portuguese presence, right? Just few missionaries or travelers goes there. So there's a bank to pay. So Banza Congo at that time was just like it was not a main focus of the colonial empire, right? In the Portuguese colonial empire. This changed in the middle of the 19th century and the growing disputes for the control of Africa. The Portuguese, the Portuguese realized that the ruins of the kulumbimbi, the church, it's a good speech and a good argument to reivindicate itself the claims of the possession of the land. So the ruins appears in this narrative, especially in the narrative of Barroso, that was a really nationalistic, but other figures of the 19th century, they all talk about the ruins as a place to show the essential possession of the place. Okay, I bring two statements about one of Jaime Pereira Pimentel, and what he says. Now, he says that relics of the past, we are left today with the old South Salvador of Congo, a capital of the vast empire with remains of the venerable ruins, a small part of what was ours, and over which adventures passed through more modern sweeping us away. The opulent purple of our ancient name and power in those vast regions. So there's no doubt at all. The ruins was the power of the Portuguese Empire in this narrative. Pinto goes in the same way. Of all religion, progress, and political domination, what remains? They are to be found in San Salvador and as well parts, many ruins of temples. The chapel of the ancient sea of Congo still preserves the cult. Is the least stronghold of the Portuguese Christian civilization. So that's the narrative, and I think, I haven't the documents of the Berlin Conference itself, but I think that was a strong argument for the Portuguese to keep that place, the margin, the south margin of the Congo for themselves. This is in the nationalistic discourse, the narrative of the time. This was a strong argument. These narratives resonates through the colonial time, right? So in a time that was more discussion, and remains that in the 50s that appears the Abaco and the movement, nationalist movements in the Congo was giving its birthing and giving its gain strength, the Kimbanguist and many other Congo movements of liberation. We have a reaction, I see that a reaction of the colonial government to say, no, this is ours. This is ours, and I would say that's ours by a heritage project. So Fernando Batalha, an architect, went to San Salvador and did archaeological excavations, and he proposed to Banza Congo, to the Kulumbimbi ruins, at least, to the cathedral ruins, to be a Portuguese heritage monument. So in his document in the archive, he says, the ancient ruins of the Cathedral of San Salvador do Congo worth to be preserved and valued because it's a monument of high historical and religious significance that attached to the foundation of the first bishop of San Salvador do Congo. And also because that place would have been raised before by the Portuguese and the first church in the south of Ecuador. So there is no doubt at all. There's a statement and there's a monument that it's Portuguese, and no question at all. There is no participation of local people. This is a Portuguese enterprise. Then we see that he did excavations that sadly I could not reach these documents. It was is in the Belas Artes archive in the University of Lisbon. I tried many times, and at that time it was not available for me to see it. I regret. But in this publication, he has some books and articles. He say that it's a lot of things are found. The soil will hardly be excavated without finding the foundations of the old constructions, already little identifiable. Numerous research we carry out in various locales allow you to discover the stones that serve the foundation and support of many works of the other, which remains enigmatic. Or chapel of the Congo kings, as well as the remnant walls of the old Congo Sea that the Pope founded the stance of the King of Portugal. Okay. Sorry for the translation also. Sorry if there's some mistakes. His interest is the Portuguese presence there. He don't say nothing about local people, and when he says it's just racist. Right? I don't bring here, but he's really racist. So there is no local people there. There is no local history in this place. It's just a place of Portuguese history. Okay? As I told, this is confirmed by the visit of the president, and he made a speech there and said that's the same. It's a colonial place, and it's a really important place for the Portuguese prince, the Portuguese empire. That's it. And even this is very nice found that I found it. This is cartoons from the military that was during the war. The military in Banza Congo, they made some cartoons to motivate the troops, right? And I found it that the troops motivate themselves drawing the ruins of the church. So the church motivates for war. It's very, very symbolic. This, right? It's a reason for war. The ruins itself. Yeah. We see this. This is for me. This is then as the colonial. That's what we expected, right? As historians, we always expect that the colonialists to be colonialists, yeah, of course. What I didn't expect was that the Angola government, especially after 92, before 92, there is a different narrative. There were more contestation with this narrative. But after 92, the Angola government embraced itself in the narrative that is quite close to the Portuguese. Right? And I think the verge point of the history was the presence of the Pope, right? It's my suspicion, right? I'm not there. I was not there, but I don't know how it's happening in Angola at that time. But I think this speech of the Pope resonates until today. Right? In this speech that he made in the kulumbimbi itself during the mass, he says, "I feel a particular emotion as a pastor of the Universal Church as I set foot on these lands of Banza Congo. Here, Christianity has a history of 5 times a century, a tradition that plunges in the shadows of the past, and gestures that amaze with the audience. In this memory of history, we cannot forget the name of great king, Afonso I, Mbembenzinga. Dear brothers and sisters, Angola has 500 years of encounters of cultures, a situation that most people of Africa do not know about it. This makes your country a distant people, who cannot simply be included in a certain current that drags the country of Southern Africa. Known as the colonizer lives among the colonized. Here, the colonizer, despite everything, coexisted with the people they encountered. Hence the specific difference that distinguished the Angola people, right? So I think that Angola government at that time, and until quite recent at least, they saw that this is a distinctive point, and they say this is the argument that we would take to convince the UNESCO and the world that this is a relevant place. So it's a church, and it's a place of unique place in Africa because of the Catholicism and because the colonizers lived among the colonized, and especially there was an encounter of culture, and then there is no violence, there is no slavery, there is no aggression in this speech. When we look at the government statement in the media, because when I did this research, I could not have the dossier itself, right? So I could not have the final document. But in the media, they did many statements in the media, so I could follow this narrative. This one shows, then João Lourenço, also a member of the Committee of Banza Congo Project, editor, City to Unearth to Preserve, made the remarks during a press conference on work for registration of Banza Congo in the World Heritage List of UNESCO. Banza Congo, he recalled, was the first political space of Equatorial Africa where a church was elevated for cathedral category, and it was still the place where it left the first ambassador of a state of Sub-Saharan Africa to the Vatican. These aspects he stressed as some of the historical elements that made Banza Congo an exceptional region compared to other parts of Africa. So you see that's almost the same speech as the Pope. It's almost the same, right? The same elements, the same arguments. We see here in a speech, José, that in an article published here in Brazil, the ambassador to UNESCO, and for this first statement is by the José Luis Mendonça, and he says, also a member of the committee and the Angola government, the fact that the name of the city, former capital of Kingdom of Congo, is once again echoed around the world gives its candidacy to UNESCO heritage. It evokes the highlights of the history of Angola, in the Kingdom of Congo in particular, for the cultural contribution we have given to the world, and likewise, we have received from it in a relationship of partnership and exchange, initiated in the 15th century after the first 230 expeditions by the Portuguese, so incorporate and expanded. Since the period of implantation of Christianity and expansion, the city has witnessed the construction of 12 churches. The teaching of letters and arithmetics was a regular practice. The King of Congo proposed to transform the Congo in a Christian state, such adoption of certain aspects. As again, the same arguments of the Pope, but then he put something for me quite shocking that say that we have this statement, like we have received from it and I receive a partnership and exchange. That's a kind of strange for me because I want to know what he means as partnership and exchange. Then I think that Ziva Domingos, in an article published here in Brazil, he answered for me what they think, this committee of the government thinks, what is partnership. According to historical research, the capital was founded in the 20th century and had the cooperation of the Catholic Church as verified to the correspondence exchange between the King of Congo and Vatican. They are very rich archives that speak of this religion component. There was also political cooperation between kingdoms, local and Portuguese. Local economic cooperation arising from the slave trade in addition to cultural cooperation with Europe and America. So that's for me, as a Brazilian, and I research, it's quite shocking that say that he calls the slave trade cooperation. For me, it's quite, I don't understand. What does he mean for this? I don't know why to say that this is a cooperation, this cultural exchange. What does he mean about America and in Africa? What cultural we exchange, America exchange to Africa? What does he mean? He means that the slave trade, I don't know. It's quite, for me, it's quite, it's trying a narrative that just try to hide or to shade the violence of the slave trade, right? And here, now let's see if I try again. Then we have the diaspora, what I call the diaspora narrative. That's quite resonates. All this, the UNESCO, the UNESCO speech, the narrative, right? Let's see if now I got it right.
The Kingdom of Congo was one of the largest and most powerful states in the southern half of Africa. From the capital, Mbanza, Congo, a densely settled and well-administered city lying south of the Congo River, a king presided over a highly stratified society that covered some 50,000 square miles. At the heart of the city stand the ruins of a building constructed in the middle of the 16th century. It's one of the most important architectural remains in the history of sub-Saharan African Christianity, a striking symbol of the transformation of the religious beliefs of this great African kingdom. It's the Cathedral of Sao Salvador. What did you think when you first heard that there was an African cathedral in before the 1600?
I couldn't believe it.
Tell me about it.
The cathedral was built in 1549. And it's an incredible thing. Think about having a cathedral to fulfill the destiny of Christianity in Africa.
Do the people here know about this history?
Many of the references say the place was a temple that connected to all religions.
So that would make sense.
That makes sense. The second tale is always the king knew wanted to be a Christian, and he decided to build this monument to honor this incredible transformation.
The adoption of Roman Catholicism by the King of Congo in 1491 not only changed the official religion of the kingdom, but it inserted Congo into the very heart of European power. At the beginning of the 17th century, a summary of world rulers prepared in Florence for the education of Prince Cosimo de' Medici listed the leaders of the world's great kingdoms. Alongside the monarchs of such great powers as England, France, Japan, and China was King Alvaro II, the King of Congo. The ruler of a powerful African kingdom converts to Roman Catholicism in 1491, sends his own ambassadors to the royal court of Portugal and to the Vatican, and one of his successors in Shakespeare's time is listed as one of the world's great rulers. How could every school child not be taught this about the history of the great African continent?
Okay, could you listen? Now it's okay, right? The sound, the audio, the sound.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I like Barbaro and that thing, right? And Barbaro was a very nice friend of mine and worked with me in Banza, Congo, and we see that the diaspora, right? This is a very important video, a series of video about the African kingdoms, and this resonates the Pope, right? The Pope itself, in a kind of way, and the colonialists, something, the Battaglia, and in another way, but show it this connection. And I ask it, where is the Mbundo kingdom? Where is the Ovimbundo kingdom, the Luango kingdom? Where is it? So it means that the importance of the place is because it's connections with Europe. That's the only reason. That's a question that I asked them for them. That's because it's not there, right? We know that the Congo kingdom has many relations with other kingdoms around, in relations that was not even many times not peaceful, and wars, and that's it. So where is it? So this the final end of this story that I'm telling. It's the storyboard, the signboard in the front of the kulumbimbi that marks. They say, no, now we are World Heritage. We are very proud. And then in the signboard, they say, what does the signboard say? The ruins of the ancient cathedral of the San Salvador of Congo built the reign of king. That's the same thing. The same thing that everybody said before, right? So there is no doubt at all to all these people that told that this is a church. This is a church and it's a Portuguese place, right? But then in my research, for my surprise, right, I could see that local people reject this narrative. Some reject less, and others rejects completely. Many people that I've interviewed there don't even think that this is a colonial place. They say there is nothing at all really connected with colonial. These stones are not Portuguese. The history of the place is not Portuguese. They don't even mention to me the Portuguese presence. For them, the Kulumbimbi place, it's so old, so traditional, so immemorial that even if the colonial people the colonialists arrived there, it's just a fraction of the time. That doesn't mean in the whole picture. So I will show this. I try to do there are many views, many interviews. So I try to summarize in a very short video some different narratives. Okay, hope we.
Milagrosamente. Imagina, esta casa é construída de pedras. Mas quando amanheceu, já apareceu essa construção. Quem construiu? Eles ficaram em confuso. Mas os nossos velhos já sabiam, é um sinal da representação da religião bantu na África.
Kulumbimbi é uma casa construída pelos nossos avós. Eles foram mandados pelo português para construir uma primeira igreja. Que construíram mesmo essa igreja são os homens mesmo daqui próprio E essas pedras estavam a levar aqui nessas áreas, aqui nessa aldeia do Madimba. Os avós que estavam a tirar as pedras aí, levaram mesmo na cabeça para vir construir. Só depois de acabar de construir, não tinha lá teto, ainda não chegou teto, só muros. Então, eles começaram a sentir alguma coisa, ou continuaram a mais de construir. Deixaram sozinhos. Eles sentiram, não, esses homens, há uma coisa que eles vão construir aqui, não é nossa. Eles têm outra missão que levantar para construir essa casa. E para eles, é uma casa que eles estavam a mostrar, porque é a chegada deles, porque construiu uma primeira igreja.
Kulumbimbi novo, depois de destruir o nosso kulumbimbi dos antepassados, ele construiu esse como primeira igreja católica. Bom, o kulumbimbi antes de branco também era uma igreja que os nossos antepassados estavam a ir rezar. É por isso que quando ele destruiu aquilo, que para isso não vale mais, depois ele reconstruiu esse. O kulumbimbi antigo, sim, porque são eles que construíram os Flamengo.
Foi construído com os homens invisíveis. Mafulamengo, chamado Mafulamengo. Mas quando eles andavam a construir, ninguém andava a ver. É só na noite, você dorme, quando vai acordar, a cara já está feita.
Agora, esse espaço era muito sagrado. Até hoje as pessoas chamam isso de terra de Jerusalém. Você vai encontrar muitas versões, porque é mesmo sagrado.
Aquela casa de Kulumbimbi, que toda a gente diz que foi construída de noite, de facto foi construída de noite. E o único testemunho que viu aquela casa ser levantada foi Noé. O próprio Deus autorizou que Noé presenciasse a construção daquela casa. E tudo que Deus quis guardar, tanto a riqueza mundial, sobretudo a riqueza africana, para não dizer mundial, está guardada naquela casa. Naquela casa não tem janela, não importa. Isso é por isso dizer que eu só queria comentar em termos espirituais. O que está naquela casa é algo espiritual. O próprio Deus é que sabe o que está aí. Portanto, o que eu estou a revelar são revelações que o próprio Pastor Guimbango revelou através dos seus filhos.
Falou que naquele longo, como falou que a lunda menengue, bem mais longo, bem tanto.
Sim, é mesmo um local sagrado também mesmo para a Igreja União Cristã do Espírito Santo, porque era um local em que se guardava as coisas sagradas de Deus.
Antes até de 500 anos, isso já foi feito há muito tempo. É quem construiu, das familiares do Bacongo, isso já foi construído, porque havia todos a direção, como se diz, Mbanza Congo, eu comia zolo, Macanda comia zolo.
491. Então, antes do Kulumbimbi, ali já existia cemitério dos reis. Nunca mudou de lugar desde que houve o reinado. O reinado encontrado pelos portugueses já era citado como um sítio nobre, cemitério dos reis, e posteriormente anexou-se àquela catedral católica.
Se tivesse problema até hoje, isso aí reina até hoje, não só no passado. Eu já tive muitos problemas na vida, então tem que ir pedir onde foram enterrados meus antepassados, sobretudo aquele que foi chefe da família, que é o mais velho.
Passa, mas cuidado de ir mesmo fazer que aí. Você ainda não tem essa inteligência dos antigos. Ir aqui, você vai ver mesmo que essa é uma casa não brinca.
So that's, hope you could listen well, right? So we see by this short video that the local people just don't resonate the church. The church, if the church appears in the narrative, it's to oppose them, it's a colonialist place. So they're not meanings. And then in the local people narrative, we see the people, the Bambaza Congo, in the building, in the meaning, in the cemetery, and many other statements. I just brought a small explanation, right? The Kulumbimbi for the Kulumbimbi for the Kimbangis church is they think it's the Babel Tower, right? The Babel Tower that we saw in the video, which was the performer, the prophetess Kimpavita, who was buried there. Many Congo. So that's not connected at all with the Portuguese history of Catholicism. No, right? It's a mysterious place where the light of the world will be enlight the world. Right? The Bundo dia Congo, the Kulumbimbi is the name of the ancient park where it was buried the bodies of the ancient kings of Banza Congo. The Portuguese colonial regime destroyed and despoiled the ancient cemetery of Kulumbimbi. So, for the Bundo dia Congo, the place there, the ruins, it's an offense for the tradition itself. It's not more opposite. The presence itself is offense for the tradition of the Congo. Right? And it has consequences. That is the last video, right? Show it.
As autoridades policiais no Zaire frustraram pela segunda vez a tentativa de construção não autorizada de estátuas do rei Vitankanga e da profetisa Kimpavita de frente ao Kulumbimbi, em Mbanza, Congo. Os mentores pertencem a uma organização denominada Mfuma Congo.
É a segunda vez que a organização Mfuma Congo protagoniza uma ação para erguer estátuas das personalidades ligadas ao Reino do Congo. No caso, o rei Vitankanga e a profetisa Kimpavita. Pretendem construir as referidas estátuas de frente ao Kulumbimbi, em Banza, Congo. Não estão autorizados, mas insistem com a ideia de construção.
Esta é a segunda vez que esta igreja faz uma tentação de violação das normas administrativas, porque a primeira vez fizeram a mesma coisa, sem nenhuma autorização, queriam invadir a área de jurisdição, que é a área do patrimônio mundial, para poderem fazer ou erguer então a sua estátua.
Integram a organização os membros da seita religiosa BDK. Mesmo sem autorização das autoridades, resolveram começar com os trabalhos. Questionados sobre a insistência, o responsável respondeu o seguinte:
escrevemos. Primeira vez, não há resposta. Segunda vez, não há resposta. Terceira vez, não há resposta. Então, pensamos que como isso é uma situação que se pode fazer rápido, por isso nós vamos fazer isso.
A Polícia Nacional foi chamada para repor a ordem e tranquilidade no local. Alguns elementos foram detidos.
É uma prática recorrente desta seita religiosa e entendemos nós que estão acusados, ou seja, estão indiciados na prática de um crime que é desobediência às autoridades, razão pela qual foram detidos.
As autoridades tradicionais reagiram condenando a atitude dos membros da seita BDK.
Ele não pode fazer isto porque aqui é o Estado que manda. Ele quer fazer um trabalho sem o governo, sem o Estado a saber. Deve ser mesmo punido.
Situação controlada. Os detidos aguardam os trâmites judiciais no Comando Municipal da Polícia Nacional em Banza, Congo.
Okay, so, I'll close now. Sorry for this taking too long, too much to speak. Then, just the final remember that this is not the first time that political movements or religious movement use the Kulumbimbi to show a political position, right? If you think the Winguizaco organization in the 60s, one of the way to show the discontentment with the Portuguese was to go there in the Kulumbimbi and clean the cathedral, clean the area of the grass, cutting the grass to show, no, we are here and we are the owners of the place, right? So it's not new. And then to closing, so conclusions is, we think that there is a wealth of interpretation of the place Kulumbimbi, and it's this that give life to the ruins and the significance in local regional society. Colonial and scientific view is not the predominant, include being combated, right? By the local people that I saw it, right? And a heritage project will include only those that have a link with the place from the moment that these groups can participate and help build it, incorporate the multiple conception of the place, right? For me, this final statement of the local traditional authority, right, say that they have to obey the state. It's kind of shocking for me, seeing the people that I saw that they don't agree. They don't agree, and I think that some way it's necessary that these other versions, the other narratives, at least to be allowed in some ways, I'm not saying the statue is a good way, right? But in some ways, to be allowed to show themselves and practice themselves, to show that it's not the only way to be analyzing and be remembered as a church. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Just time is distance here. Now we come to the time of question. And I see Wyatt to be excited about this because your name could have been said. Just who has questions? Wyatt, just do you have some comments or questions? Just please.
This
With McAfee.
is a beautiful documentation of myths in the making. And the fascinating ruins on which can be inscribed almost any narrative that suits your particular group, whether it's the Portuguese or the Catholic Church or this local church or the other local church. Amazing. I look forward to the final version written up of this.
You just any question, any just comment?
May I say something? This is Didier.
Yes, Professor Gondola, just go ahead.
Thank you very much for this very informative and sophisticated presentation of Banza Congo. I'm hearing an echo. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you well.
Very weird. So I have one comment and one question. The question is about one frame in the very last video that you showed. There was a frame of Chimpavita, but it wasn't the Chimpavita that we know, but it was a man. So the silhouette and everything was a silhouette of Chimpavita, but the face inside was the face of a man. So I was just really wondering if that's the way that some people are claiming to be kind of perpetuating or continuing her work, her vision, kind of taking on the mantle of Chimpavita by portraying themselves as a sort of reincarnation of Chimpavita. I saw that frame and I was really intrigued by that. And the comment that I want to make is that I find it really similar to Elmina Castle in Ghana, those multiple claims, as Professor McAfee said, that a lot of people are constructing narratives and claiming that space, the ruins. Elmina Castle is the very same thing, because there are so many layers of history of Elmina Castle, because the Elmina Castle was not just a place to hold slaves, it was a government building, it was a school, and so on. So you have multiple claims coming from the local people, the African-American diaspora that really claim that Elmina is a sacred place, that it shouldn't be touched, the stench inside shouldn't be sanitized. And then, of course, so I was just really kind of seeing a similarity between the ruins of the cathedral and Elmina Castle. But my question is really about that frame about Chimpavita.
Bruno, do you have an answer, please?
Okay, thank you for the comment, McAfee. Thank you, Gondola. Thank you. And I really didn't pay attention to the representations of Chimpavita in my research. I was really short. I did all this field work in just 30 days. It was really short. I had like problems with to get an extension. So I had to really be really focused in this thing. But one thing that I remember, for example, in this ACK that was in the video, that one of the pastors said that they have a stylized version of Chimpavita in the altar of the church. So, and I could find many postcards in the Louvre market like postcard. That's not postcard, but it's like a paper in the plastic with Kimpa Vita in the front of in the front of kulumbimbi, and it's not the Kimpa Vita that we see in the drawing, the historical drawing. Right? It's another version. So yeah, I guess I just say that's there is different views of Kimpa Vita depending where you view it. If you saw it by the prism of the connection with the colonial history or traditional history, I think.
So happy to see that the leader of Bundu da Congo, in fact, I spoke with him about 2 months ago, just for more than 15 minutes, more than semi, making the claims, not only him, in fact, I think you spoke about it. There are just 2 types of discourses on Mbanza Congo. If I had to categorize them, those discourses which want to transcend the colonial time, because the history of Mbanza Congo doesn't start really with that encounter of Congo people and the Congo people and the colonial powers, and the history of Mbanza Congo starts just long before that time. And I think just one of the criticisms is that even historians like Louis Harry Gates, Harry Gates from Harvard, they seem to start talking of the prestige of Mbanza Congo from the time that Mbanza Congo came in touch with the colonial powers. And that's something just against which you are reacting, saying, no, just we have to transcend that moment. And I think that's what is quite present in the what I would say, I would call just the public memory of Congo people. Just many of them, when they speak about Mbanza Congo, they don't have in mind that colonial era as the moment, the historical moment of the foundation of Mbanza Congo. Mbanza Congo goes beyond that. I think that's really the tension that I can see in your statement. In fact, even when you evoke just John Thornton, because as you know that John Thornton works just doesn't speak of that pre-colonial era. Yes, we know that his expertise, as we know, just from that time of encounter. In fact, he'll be one of the speakers soon. He sent me an email yesterday or 2 days ago. He will not be able to attend today because of some family matters. So but that's what I want to say, that your concern is that not just there is that dialectic, that tension to main discourses, those who just want really to start just the history of Mbanza Congo from that moment of encounter. But then just for Congo people, just it had to go beyond that. And
so Adrien, before Bruno responds, can I interject something? Just reacting to what you just said. Do you think that Mbanza Congo would even be on the map if it weren't for that encounter with the Portuguese, if it weren't for the stone buildings, if it weren't for the renaming the city San Salvador, if it weren't for the ambassadors that were sent to Rome and if it weren't for the schools that were created in Mbanza Congo, if it weren't for the demographic upsurge of the population. I think at some point there were over 60,000 people living in Mbanza Congo. So maybe Mbanza Congo wouldn't be remembered the way it is remembered now if it weren't for that colonial encounter, if it weren't for Catholicism, basically, in just one word. You are muted. I think I cannot hear you.
Okay, what I'm saying is that what you're saying, just Professor Gondola, is to some extent very much true. But when one reads people like V.Y. Mudimbe, and let me just take it to his book of the invention of Africa, or even the idea of Africa, just speaking about that moment, that encounter just between African civilizations and colonialism, which is a very historical moment. And but you historians know that your work just to some extent began long before that encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you. Yeah.
And what I'm saying here is that that's the whole question in terms of what has been the colonial positive impact upon Africa, or is it just colonialism, or just colonial powers that bring Africa within just the global map? I think that's one of the major questions when we just
but Adrian, I think also is the question that we tend to view the colonial moment with some Eurocentric lenses. So we believe that the colonial moment was a moment of modernity, and this modernity was introduced from the outside, that it was European modernity and so on. I think that the best way to view that is that it was a very hybrid moment where Africans, and in this case, the Congo people, also participated also in that modernity. So it's not just a European modernity. So that's why I liked what Skip Gates said. He said this African cathedral. You see, it was really interesting. Although the architecture, the material is Portuguese. Obviously, before the Portuguese, the Congolese weren't building stone buildings. They were using biodegradable materials. And I'm assuming also the architecture of the cathedral is inspired from Europe. I mean, it's not inspired by any kind of Congo architectural style. But I think that the more accurate way to view that moment, that colonial moment and colonial encounter, is basically to give more agency to the African people and to the local people as participating in the construction of this modernity that became synonymous with the colonial era. Unmute.
One can respond to this from different angles. Just literally speaking, one can even refer to the work of Leopold Sédar Senghor, for instance, speaking about being influenced by people like Teilhard de Chardin, speaking about la civilisation universelle. And just to this rendezvous of cultures, I think we as Africans, we didn't go just empty-handed. We had some contributions to make. And again, Mudimbe, we speak about the movement. I think civilizations are not static. And the dynamic, that encounter between people from different civilizations had to happen in one way or another. And I think I don't see, it depends from where you see that. And I think that Africans have contributed a lot to modernity, so say. I think that's that's my comment. I don't know if there is another.
No, one thing I want to comment, Gondola and all, it's that the question that I did in my research is why is the standard to be compared the European, right? Why we have to use stones, and why we have to Catholic Church? This is the standard. It seems in the old narrative that if you don't compare with this, there is no value, right? These local people tell me it's different. We have a value, independent if there's stone, if there is, there's a value in itself. It's a value in the tradition itself, and that's the best value that can have. So yeah, it's all heritage. It's process. It's a difficult process, right? Everywhere, not even Brazil, in United States, and everywhere, even Europe, it's local, really, more really everywhere. But what surprised me that's why Angolan government took this track colonialism so strong, right? I mean, I talk with them. People just they told me. I don't even put in the video, but people there told me that they were then to worship and the government, the police say, no, go away. Local people can go there to worship, to pray. Why? But the Catholics are allowed to go there and pray. So it is just unbelievable. This, and then you have, of course, the King of the Church. They have the power, the number power, let's say, to go there and impose. You say, no, we want to do a prayer here. But this local church, this small church, they don't have it. They told me many times that they want a speech. It was really remarkable. They say, why they are digging my grandfather? Because one of the people told me that his grandfather was the king of Congo, the king Johnny Land, the king of the 40s. He said, no, he was my grandfather. And the archaeologists excavated the kulumbimbi, that is the cemetery, so they excavated my grandfather. So this is a completely horrific way to do archaeological work. Right? They say that if no one excavates cemeteries. No one, even the cemetery of the 60s, because the last one dig there was the 62. It's really recent. So it was very problematic. And the question is the Angola government. I don't have proofs, let's say, to do this, but they cooptated this local tradition. They won the video. They say, "Oh, this is the state." The local traditions are completely aligned with the government. And they say that they are the local tradition. So they say, no, the local tradition are us. These other ones are sects. They are religious fanatics. There are many names to these ones. So they say, and the Angolan government say, these ones are the traditional that we legitimize, the one that agree with them. So then now to UNESCO narrative, it's okay because there is a narrative body. There's a traditional narrative body that agrees with this. And then creates this a shame. I think it's shame situation, sad situation, and I hope in the future really they change it. It's unbelievable that the Kimbangu Church. I say the Kimbangu Church because it's the biggest one, but it's more than 80 million. Some cemetery people. They go there and say, no, this is a church. This is not just a church, right? It can be also something. Right? And that's it. It's like if you go to the African burial ground and say, "Oh, this is a cemetery. This is a business store." This is much more than just a cemetery, a business store. This is memory and everything.
Adrian, I have a
Yes.
question.
Okay, Diane.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
I'm sorry that I cannot use my camera right now. The next time I hope I will be in a position to do that. I found this presentation incredibly informative, and it just has me thinking so much about history. You know, what is history? Especially as a person, I did a Fulbright fellowship in Democratic Republic of Congo in 2006 through early 2008. And although my interest was in comparing what I've learned about the Jamaican heritage through my first book, The Congo Jamaican Heritage, and trying to understand the relationship between that heritage and parts of Central Africa, I was just deeply, deeply embedded, absconded into much of what Bruno was showing in the lower Congo, you know, different prophetic movements and groups that have that can, you know, produce incredible oral historical accounts, many informed by revelation through ecstatic experience. Just incredibly powerful. The day before I was leaving to go back to Kinshasa, one of the local, two members from one of the local prophetic movements came to my place where I was staying and asked me, they said that we got a vision and we want your cooperation because we know that you are the person that can help us rewrite the Bible. You know, but look, my advisor, it was really powerful. My advisor, Dr. James Cone, the father of Black theology, used to say, you know, the reason Black people are, and he was speaking about African Americans in particular, don't have the bold, the audacity and the courage to change this Christian tradition is because we don't believe it's ours. And especially if, you know, but when people believe it's theirs, they have that audacity and that courage. And that's something that I find so incredible about the local political, religious, theological movements in the Congo. It's profound to me. It is their tradition, and they have their revelation, and they have their truth. It is incredibly, it's incredible. Well, another thing that I am interested in increasingly, because I recently wrote an article, it's supposed to be published in the Journal of History and Anthropology as part of a special series, where I'm exploring even further, and I know historians of Africa and the Atlantic world are very much already here, but in my field of religion, we have a long way to go. Exploring what it means for us to begin to engage in triangulated research, to understand the experience or the influence of African religions and cultures in the diaspora better. And I've used a lot of that in my own work, looking at Brazil and Cuba to help shed light on places like Trinidad and Jamaica. So I was just curious, Bruno, is there anything in your work, and I missed the first 7 minutes, so I don't know if you talked about this. I don't know if you do any work in Brazil. Is there any comparative work that you have done that might shed light on what you're now studying, even in Mbanza, Congo today, from Brazil? Is there anything archaeologically speaking that you know of that has been excavated in Brazil that might correspond with, or might even just have some way of illuminating what you might even be studying in Mbanza, Congo today?
Thank you, Stuart. Your name, please?
Miss Diane.
Professor Diana Stewart.
Thank you.
Yeah, Diane Stewart.
Thank you. It's prophetic movement. It is just amazing. That's why I do so much. And now I'm doing my PhD in Guinea-Bissau because Angola was too tough for me, political reasons,
to do this my field work. So I changed to Guinea-Bissau, sadly. But I hope to come back to Angola because this prophetic movement is so exciting. They always say to me that you the white guy, and you interested in us, and it's interesting. And the colonialists are the Angola government, and people told me everything. It's just very prophetic and changes really soon. And the relationship, and researcher and the people, it's a very nice. And answering your question, I think we have a problem that you have in Jamaica and US and all the diaspora. Even if Brazil, we have traditional religion that's really strong, the candomblé, the banda, and other forms of religion, we kind of lose some let's say some standards of comparison because of the diaspora itself, right? I'm not a specialist on this, right? I'm just doing a comment. Then, so we have the only case that I can see that resonates a little bit. It's the port, the Valongo port in Rio de Janeiro, that was the biggest slave port in the world. Right? So this is a World Heritage. It's the same year as the Mbanza Congo, 2017. And my friends work there, I know them, and they had some problems because I don't say problems, right? We say problems, but it's questions of the community that they go to excavate there as documents. So we have to find the port, we have to find the material proof that this was the slave trade port. Then they found it a lot, right? But the candomblé, the religious movement in Brazil, some of them went there and say, no, this is more important than just a port. This is the religious meaning. So, of course, there is a layer of memory of the slave trade, but I won't say that they think this is a different thing. No, they still share, all groups share that this is a port. Okay, this is a port but they have different perspectives, right? The Black African community of Rio and the Candomblé, they say, well, this is a place of memory, of violence, more aligned with the African burial ground, let's say, right? But this is just not a scientific place.
Okay.
Right? Some kind of this, but as Banza Congo, that this is completely different because like that is like the Kimbangis church. The people say, no, this is not even, this is old, and this is the Bible, but this is the Bible that the Christian was black, and the Jerusalem is in Kamba. So this is nothing at all with the narrative with the Portuguese. Nothing at all. It's completely different. This example like this in Brazil, I don't know.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we are getting towards the end. I was discussing about very, very interesting. Diane, I was lucky to meet with James Cone in England twice. And when I got to this country, I used to just call him maybe once every other month. And thanks to him that I got very interested in African American churches. And lately I've been reading somebody like Peter Paris. And of course, just one can just see the presence of African, or what I would call the sociology of African, or the African society within African American churches.
Yes.
And it is very present there, even the concept of Duke, the chief of the village, and so on. When one studies African American churches, one sees that. In fact, William Du Bois has spoken about it to some extent.
Absolutely.
And yes, Du Bois has spoken about it. Peter Paris has spoken about it. And personally, as an African, when I got to this country, I was very much interested in what I call just the anthropology of African American churches, which I did to some extent. I did some ethnographies. And that's something I would want to share with you at some point. In fact, that's one of the reasons that brought me to come to this part of the world, because I was in love with African American just religious systems. Yes. And very, very interesting, in which I see the presence of African just sociology, traditional sociology, and they're very, very interesting. I think if there is no more question, just want to, just unless there is one, I do want to thank Billy Day, just our speaker, and we'll come back to this again. We'll come back to this again because this is a series that we want really to begin. Thank you very much, Bruno. That Professor Ndonga was supposed to be with us, but he just apologized because of some family issues. In fact, even John Thornton, who was supposed to be here, I wish just you and John Thornton just could really talk seriously, just because you got those different points that are very interesting. But in terms of just communicate, this is what I want to say, that we have, let me read this for you. We have our monthly webinars. Just in August, we have Mr. Federico Carducci, just will be speaking on succession crisis and the relations to politics within the Kimbangi Church and the Tawe Church, a comparative perspective. That will be in August. And September 23rd, we'll be having Professor John Thornton. We'll be speaking about King Afonso. And Thornton will be speaking about that. And on October 30th, we'll be having a very special day to really honor just the work of Professor Wat Magathi, who was with us this morning. And he'll be we have more than 7 great scholars who have accepted really to make contribution to this day, on this day. And our own friend, Professor Gondola, will be really presiding that moment. We want to really honor the work of Professor Wat Magathi. And in November, Professor Yolanda Covington Ward will be speaking as well. She will send us her theme just very soon. I think that's what I had as just announcement. We really want to thank you for attending the session this morning. Congo Academy is your platform, and we are so grateful for anything you can do just for the growth of this platform. Knowledge is power, and the knowledge is biological. As we talk, we learn. As we learn, we talk and share. I think that's all I had to say. If you have a comment, please, or question, send it to us, and we send them to just Bruno. And again, thank you very much, Bruno. Friends, have a good weekend.
Thank you to Congo Academy. Thank you, Adrien.
Merci beaucoup,
Didier. À bientôt. Au revoir.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Diana, bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much. This was really,
thank you.
Really good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye, friends.
Tondele.
Tondele.
Sorry, people, did you want the videos? It's in this website, my website.
Okay.
And also you can, yes, send us your website, and you can also visit the website of Congo Academy, friends. Thank you.
Yeah.